Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Meeting of the Wahoo City Council, Tuesday, November 28th, 7 o'clock p.m. Open Meetings Act is posted on the wall. If you need more information, there it will be at City Hall. Call the meeting to order. Ask for roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Carl Warford.
Here.
Ryan Ideas.
Here.
Chris Rappel.
Here.
Patrick Nagel.
Here.
No proclamations. Anybody in the audience have something they want to bring up that's not on the agenda? We'll move forward. Department head reports. Denise, you're up first.
Thank you. So I will promise I will be, let's see here. How does this gonna work? I will be fast and easy. So, this just kind of gives you an idea of what this would be the value of the collection if we had to go out tomorrow and replace the library collection, all the books, the magazines, the audios, everything. We're looking at $500,000 or more. Those are the estimated savings. Our system allows us to track by the people who check items out. That's what they're saving by not having to buy those items. That is the amount of money that they are saving. The library currently has over 27,000 items in the collection. The Overdrive, which is our online digital access for the ebooks, audiobooks, is over 68,000. It grows daily. Hoopla is another digital service that we offer. That's the audiobooks, ebooks, movies, television, streaming, that type of thing. That has really been growing. So the patrons have access to over 140,000 titles. And I also like to point out that the Overdrive especially, we only pay $500 per year for that service to the Nebraska Library Commission. So for that $500, our patrons are getting a heck of a bargain in the return on investment for that. And then the Friends match that donation, and this year actually they upped it, so they gave $750 this year and the city gave the $500, so we appreciate that. So that's been it's where the future is going, is digital. This is just kind of a quick little circulation results, shows what we're checking out, what's being downloaded. My staff member Bob created this. He loves that cannibalizing word. I wanted him to replace it, but he's like, no, it's showing what's happening. So digital seems to be taking over adult books, not children, but adult. But we do have people that still want that real book in their hands. So, but we do still have good checkouts. So we're happy with that. This kind of shows the collection turnover, what is turning over. As you can see, our items, audiobooks, the physical format of an audiobook CD is a dying format. We've pretty much eliminated most of our collection. We have a few people that still have, I have crafters and people who have a CD player. I'm one of those guilty ones that still has a CD player at home. But we still check out a few audiobooks, but obviously it is a dying format. DVDs is also something that kids still circulate very well, but adult, I hate calling them adult DVDs because it sounds like we're doing something like, oh, adult DVDs in the library, but that's what, hey, maybe we could advertise that and really, get it going again. So anyway, I digress. So it is obviously formats, though, that are, and we get a lot of our DVDs now are donated, so we're purchasing very few just because people are getting rid of their collection, and we go through and kind of cherry pick out what we want and what we know, especially kids. If there's some good Disney kids in there, we'll definitely keep those. So Money saved. I want to really point out the county card, because that county card fee, for those of you who don't realize, if you don't live in the city of Wahoo, you pay $20 a year for a library card. That has not increased since 2006. I would like to know any other department that has not increased a fee since 2006. So I think next year we will go to $25. The interesting part for me was that $20 that they're spending on a card saved county residents over $130,000 of library materials that they checked out. So I found that an interesting statistic that we found.
And that's $20 for the family, right?
Basically, it could be because they only need one card. Some families have, the additional card is only $1. So I have some of my really big families that they may have 5 or 6 kids, so they'll get one card and then they'll get 5 more cards. So they can each have 20 items. So obviously, it's still a heck of a deal. So we are and all the other libraries in Saunders County are now charging for cards, and they're all charging $25. I didn't realize they upped to $25 until we had a group meeting a few months ago. So we will, like I say, next year we will go to $25. So
How many do we have from the county that buy the $20 cards? How much revenue does that?
it generates around 3,000 a year, I would say, is about what it is. It varies. And if they own property, we do not make them pay. So if they come in and say, hey, I own a building downtown, or I own a house, or rentals, those Hancock people have a lot of houses. So I think, I'm not saying which one, but anyway, somebody came and got a card the other day, and I'm like, nope, she doesn't have to pay. So it's a good thing. So it's only fair. And then this is just non-book programs. As you can see, our door counts have really, we haven't caught back up to pre-COVID yet, but we're getting there. And meeting room use is huge in story time. That's kind of where it's at in the library. You're either here for story time or you're here for a meeting. So if you're 3 years old, you're having a great time in the morning. And if you're 30 years old, you're here for something at night. So, or older. So, but it's coming back. And the community center thing is huge. We're kind of a clearinghouse for a lot of information. We provide, we're the only public copy, fax, scan place, I think, in town that we know of. And something else that's really been picking up lately is people that are getting passports are coming here to get, the courthouse sends them here to print the forms. They won't print the form at the courthouse for them. So they come to the library and we print the form and take it on. So that's been something new that's just recently started. So here's our revenue. Obviously, we're not bringing in as much revenue as some of the other departments, but that's not our mission. We're not here to make a bunch of money, but we do okay. I think the people that come in are very pleased with the services that we provide. Copies is huge. I was amazed at the copy. We had 1 month this year that we did over $600 in copy sales, and that was amazing. So, but anyway, that's it. And Wahoo, we are required every 5 years to do a strategic plan. So this year it was due. So I had a committee of the library board, and we went through. There's certain requirements and criteria that you have to meet in order to even be accredited, and we were able to check off quite a few of those, and we received our gold status from the Nebraska Library Commission. The Library Board of Trustees also have to be certified in order to be a certified library board. They have to do so many CE hours every year, or 3 years, and they attain that, and then that allows us to apply for grants from either a state or a federal agency. So we have a lot of the multi-digital options, expanded materials, growing children's programming, focusing on that reading, expanding community involvement through library program and the meeting room space. And we still are basically a traditional library though too. So even though we've got a lot going on technology-wise, I'm looking into my next edition, maybe doing a television in the entry that could be a community board that we could post a lot of events and things on that people could see as they come in the door. That's been kind of a big thing, that people don't know what's going on in town and they'd like to be able to get more information. So I think that's all I have. So any questions? I know you're just dying to ask something. Come on. Just don't, you know. Oh, you guys are just.
You did a good job, evidently.
Oh, well, I thank all of my staff. It goes to Bob and Christine. They're my techie people. I just supply them the numbers and the information, and they make the pretty stuff happen. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, Miss Christine. There's your mouse on.
Cody, you're up.
All right, good evening. Really only a couple things to report on. And I'll start with the truck. As you guys know, we've been working through getting some bids, sending out for rebidding due to changing some specifications, trying to cut some costs on the trucks. And we've gotten back 3 prices from 3 different vendors. We started with 4. One didn't care to respond to us, so we went with the other 3 that we've been working with. Those 3 companies are Smeal, which you know is in Snyder, and they also have another manufacturing facility in South Dakota. The other one is E1, and they are located out of Florida. And then Rosenbauer would be the 3rd, and they're located out of Minnesota. So I've just got some numbers to report to you guys. I meet with my truck committee tomorrow night to discuss these final specifications, and then we will work with Melissa to move through the appropriate channels to meet with finance committee, and then we'll bring another report to you guys. Melissa, can I disclose where we're at as far as current prices on what we've received
Sure,
back?
that's fine.
Okay, just so you guys have an understanding of where we're at. So the Smeal came back at $952,000. That is with no trade-in, so we would not trade in our current truck. We would be responsible for the sale of that. Market's weird right now, so we could really hit it out of the park with a trade-in. We could hit it out of the park with us selling it outright ourselves. It just depends on what the market's doing potentially 2 years from now. So, but that truck was with no trade-in. The build time on that vehicle, so the manufacturing time would be 650 days. Just to kind of give you an idea on how long these are taking. So, the E1 came back at $966,973. Now there are some cost savings here that they are willing to provide us, with some stipulations. They did offer us $50,000 trade-in, and that would be at the time that they take that truck away from us and deliver us the new one. If we prepay the entire amount of the truck prior to the delivery date, that would save us an additional $81,416. So the total cost on that truck, if we took the 2 incentives, would be $835,557. Delivery time on that is roughly 700 days. The 3rd truck is a Rosenbauer, and they were at $879,355. There was no trade offer on that. If we prepay the chassis upon its arrival at the plant, which would be $391,676. There would be a savings of $15,036. So total overall truck cost would be $864,319. The build time on that particular vehicle is 450 days. So a considerable amount of time difference between the other 2 manufacturers. So that's kind of where we're at. We sent it back and forth to make sure that we had apples to apples oranges to oranges to make sure that, you know, each manufacturer was sending us what we wanted, not what they recommended for us. And believe me, we did cut out some pretty costly items that we currently have on our current truck, but would not affect our ability to provide coverage to not only our community, but the surrounding communities that we also help protect. So, questions on that? Okay. We do have a couple training burns coming up. We have a rural training burn, or a burn that's outside of the city limits of Wahoo. That's just an old farm structure, barn, if you will. We will do some fire attack practice on that, and then we're working with Kevin on another burn of property that the church owns, the Catholic Church owns, down by the football field. So, a couple training opportunities coming up. I have no new equipment to report. I've put orders in for stuff that I budgeted for, but obviously it's still supply chain issues for whatever reason. So whenever I get them, I will report that they've been delivered. So that's really all I have for you. Is there any other questions? Sorry. We did vote on the position of fire chief, and I was nominated to be fire chief again. So Dave Privet will provide you a letter of recommendation from the department for the mayor to appoint and the council to approve. So
Congratulations. Cody, what was, out of curiosity, historically, what would the lead time have been on?
a year to a year and a half.
Okay.
Family Dental Center.
So, just
Yeah.
curious comparatively.
And it all depends on the complexity of the unit that you're building as well. Obviously, tankers don't take as long. Weed trucks, things like that. They're not very intricate in what they do. But engines, aerials, ambulances, there's a lot that goes into them. And there's a lot more, I guess, parts that are outsourced from other places that take some time. So.
Sure.
I would imagine the electronics that are going in are probably some of the cause of the.
Yeah, a lot of chips, microchips. That's the majority of it, to be honest with you. All the other stuff usually is either manufactured in-house or manufactured in a sister company that's nearby, so they have a heads up as to what's coming down the pipe. So. All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Melissa.
I'll keep this short. Again, I've been continuing to participate in some conversations with league staff and NACO staff, as well as other city and county representatives on some potential changes to the budget process on the statewide level that are kind of being pursued by the governor, and probably see some things legislatively this spring. Wilmer Ridge, we do have the punch list completed, or is done. The contractor is working on completing those items. We'll have a pay application on our next agenda, with then a final one probably the first meeting in January as we get that project closed out. At your last meeting, you approved the water and sewer loans, and I think literally a day later, Ryan got some information from NDE about Build America Buy America.
Our wonderful federal government, God bless them, decided to change the requirements that we were wavered for. There's guidance on Buy America, Build America, so buying American and building American, using American products, which is great. But there was a waiver on the loans from 2023 from that block grant. That's not going to be a waiver for 2024, which you would think if they were going to get rid of that waiver, they'd have the guidance before they get rid of the waiver, but they haven't got rid of the guidance. It's supposed to be here in January, and then the state of Nebraska has to understand it and build it into our there's a term for it, our acceptance paperwork, essentially telling EPA we are complying with our project. So we cannot bid without risking if we bid the project without understanding the requirements, and there's products that are spec'd and bid that don't meet the Buy America, Build America, we could lose our financing at that 0%, 35% loan forgiveness. So I have reached out to Don Bacon's office, and I'm gonna see what we can do. So
Well, we've waited this long, how much longer do you think this would take?
I don't know.
Wow,
It's
that's frustrating.
I don't know. They say January, but the last time I remember there being a January deadline, it was 3, 4, 5 months later.
Is it January 24? January,
That's January.
okay.
And again, keep in mind, the longer this downtown water main project is put off, the longer we wait to fix the streets in downtown Wahoo. So, again, we're gonna exhaust some efforts and some, we do have the congressman's office right here in Wahoo. We're gonna exhaust some, efforts and see what his office can do for us. If that means it's a strongly worded letter or on our behalf. It's not just affecting Wahoo though. It's affecting a whole lot of loans like this across the entire country. So I would think there'd be some backlash to try and motivate EPA. So again, thank you, Melissa, for letting me
Sure.
mention that.
How much stuff actually comes from overseas?
I think as I mentioned at the last meeting, we are working on the bidding documents for Phase 2 of North Highlands. The Finance Committee has had a couple conversation with employee benefits brokers interested in providing that service to the city of Wahoo for our health and dental insurance plans. On the agenda, we do have the renewal for next year, for 2024, and following that, we'll have a conversation about a potential broker change. I guess it is my recommendation, and you can do whatever you see fit, but it is my recommendation that the Finance Committee has been working through this broker conversation, and that I would like the Finance Committee to make a recommendation. It's coming before you tonight, so I guess that's just my recommendation. The Board of Public Works will be meeting tomorrow night to review their budget, and a recommendation to come to the City Council at the first meeting in December, I believe. Airport Authority and City of Wahoo audits are going to be, they'll be on site next week to do their audit work, December 6th, 7th, and the 12th. And then just note, if you get a questionnaire about fraud, I don't want it. I want you to mail it back to them directly, please.
Okay, any questions? Anything on North Drainage?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, consent agenda. Most of the items, number 3 is a change order with no dollar change, just the extension of the warranty on it. And the approval of the claims.
That is for the joining that they were doing, so we got a 3-year warranty on that.
Okay.
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any other questions? Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Grapple,
Yes.
Krejci,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. No public hearing on associated action items. Action item, not requiring a public hearing. The first one is approval of contracts for employee benefits effective January 1, 2024. Read that off.
Sure. So I know that there was nothing in your packet on this. We had some conversations in the Finance Committee about, so our health insurance renews January 1 for a calendar year. Our dental, long-term disability, vision, voluntary life are the same. We have been working with representatives from Inspro on getting a quote for our health insurance renewal. We met in, I think, early September, maybe late August, early September. Buffy and I did, to have a conversation, and it appeared that Medica would be coming forward with a fairly favorable renewal. We did get that information, and I guess just to back up, in August, when we had conversations, we felt like it would be a good idea to go out into the market and look at what our options are, and so the reps from Inspro did that work, and actually just today we got some really hard numbers on what all of those are and we landed at 2 specific options. One of them is a renewal of the current plan that we have with Medica, which, if you remember from last year, was a change. Blue Cross came in with a 44% increase in our premium, and Medica was much more favorable. And our employees have, I can say, we haven't heard any negative comments about Medica. That's been very well received. And then the other option that we have is Blue Cross. Medica is a 3% increase, Blue Cross is a 5% decrease, but there's a lot more to that conversation than just those numbers. And so I know reps from Inspro are here to elaborate a little bit on some of that. So I'll, without, if you're interested in stepping up here, Brandon?
Sure, you bet. Good evening. My name's Brandon Bender. I'm one of the benefits consultants for y'all. And so we felt like we had almost a challenging decision today that was pretty fortunate in our business, and that we got to bring you what I believe is a very favorable renewal from Medica, but also some really nice favorable numbers from Blue Cross Blue Shield. So, and I don't know how detailed you want me to get into this. Currently, you guys have 2 plan designs. We offer your employees, not technically, maybe even 4, right? So we offer the employees a $2,000, what we call a PPO copay plan. So it's a $2,000 deductible, 80% cost share, with a $4,000 out of pocket. We have benchmarked that, and it's a very competitive plan. It does have office copays, $25 for primary care, $50 for specialist, $25 urgent care. Preventive is covered at 100%, and there's an ACA list of required preventive items like annual physicals, screening mammograms, pap smears, things like that. Medica is a little bit unique in that they provide us a large number of medications that they consider preventive, which means they're free or first dollar to all of your employees. So I think our numbers were around $30,000 of medications total cost that your employees receive for free. And these are medications like for blood pressure, cholesterol, some nervous conditions, asthma. I know one of the big ones was for diabetes, and these include generics, but also a number of name brand medications. So before, the people that had a copay for their medications, they like that plan, but the people that are on the high deductible health plan where everything applies towards your deductible, except the preventive items, really like that drug card. Because now all of a sudden, instead of having to pay, retail costs, they're getting those drugs for free. So as I go down that first plan design, drugs then that aren't on that preventive list are $10, $30, $50, and then a co-insurance of 20%, depending on what tier they're in. So we have that plan in both what they call their Medica Choice National Network, which is a very broad network locally in the state of Nebraska and nationally. But we also offer it, which was another thing we came with last year, with a CHI narrow network. So it would be Catholic Health Initiatives, those associated hospitals and associated providers. Last year when we did make that move, and it's about, I want to say an 18% savings, I think. I don't have that right necessarily in front of me. But we did make sure that Saunders Medical Center and a good group of those associated providers were also in that. And so we had a nice number of employees that migrated to that plan. The other plan, so again, that same deductible plan with copays, and then they can choose their network, the full network or the narrow network. Then we also have our high deductible health plan that's eligible with a health savings account. That is a $3,000 deductible currently, and then it's paid at 100%. Everything applies towards the deductible in that, unless again it's one of those preventive things, the physicals, but also those medications, which is a really important benefit. And again, the employees can choose, do I want the full network, or am I fine paying a little bit less premium and going with that CHI narrow One of the caveats to that plan this year is we are going to increase the deductible from $3,000 to $3,200, which changes our family deductible to $6,400. The reason for that is there's a change in the IRS regulations that are, the deductible was what we call an embedded deductible. So if you were signed up for family, which would mean employee spouse, employee child, or employee spouse and child, that one person in the family could hit that $3,000, that embedded deductible, and then the benefits would go to 100%. So the IRS changed that, moved that line a little bit for us, so we are moving that to $3,200 this year to make sure that we're going to stay compliant with IRS regulations and make sure that we can keep that embedded deductible. And again, so we have that choice of plan. Initially, our renewal came in from Medica at about 8%. We continue to negotiate that down to about a 5% renewal. There's some little percentages here, so I'm doing some rounding. And then Medica also offered us a $20,000 wellness credit, which when we add everything up ends up being about a 3% increase. A couple things on the Medica. Their copay plans, and we do have a good number of people that are on the copay plans, their copay plans cover diagnostic labs. So preventive labs generally are covered at 100% by the ACA, but the diagnostic labs oftentimes go towards the deductible and co-insurance. So an example, if I go to my primary care doctor under the Medica plan and the Medica copay plan, and I get a strep culture, that diagnostic test just falls under my office copay. So it's a really good benefit. One of the options that we're looking at with Blue Cross Blue Shield, in that same scenario, I would pay my office copay, but then I would also end up, that lab would be covered, but it would apply towards the deductible and co-insurance, so I'd pay additionally for those labs. So those are one of the benefits. The other thing where we have benefits with Medica would be on therapies, so like physical therapy, occupational therapy, chiropractic, those types of things. Medica treats that as an office visit copay scenario, where Blue Cross Blue Shield, those typically apply towards deductible and co-insurance. The other thing is you're just big enough. We did get a level funded option. It wasn't really competitive this year, but I know kind of self-funding something that we talked a little bit about with the finance committee. Medica does give us claims experience. So as we move forward in future years, if we do want to maybe look at that self-funded option, having that claims experience can be very, very valuable to see if that's going to be to get us the best stop loss quotes and things like that. I don't think, am I missing anything else as far as the benefits of Medica? Any questions about Medica, their current renewal? I felt it was very favorable. Even yet today, I was talking with the Medica rep, and I was really trying to see if we could work some type of rate cap for next year's renewal. We wouldn't be able to hold rates, obviously, but just promise us that maybe they wouldn't increase the renewal. It's gone up the flagpole at Medica. He is not real confident that he's going to be able to get the rate cap, but he's like, we really want your business. And we know we have some competition out there, and he's possibly maybe even seeing if we could bring that renewal down even a few more percentage points. I said that would have been nice, last week, but we could take whatever we could get. So then that brings us to Blue Cross. Any questions about the Medica? All right. So next is Blue Cross Blue Shield. Blue Cross also offers a narrow network option. So we again thought, we would look at their Blue Cross Blue Shield full network, which is you were with Blue Cross Blue Shield last year, and I think since 2011. So we'd go back to that, and then we would also offer that CHI Catholic Health Initiatives narrow option for some of those employees that wanted to save some premium. Their plan was a little bit different. $2,000 on the copay side, a $2,000 deductible. 80% plan, that's the same, $4,000 out of pocket, $25 for primary care office visits, $50 for specialist. Their urgent care though would be a $75 copay versus the $25 for Medica. So a little bit of difference there. And then remember, those diagnostic labs would be covered but applied towards an additional charge of the deductible coinsurance and not fall under the copay option like the Medicaid plans do. We would have the preventive ACA, like, you know, the annual physicals and those things would be covered. They do not have the extensive prescription drug list that's first dollar or free to your members, but they do have some insulins, which can be big for the diabetics that they do cover first dollar. So not quite as strong there, but they do a little bit more than some of the other carriers. Our drugs were 10, tier 1, 30, tier 2, 50 for tier 3, very close. And then their specialty was a $100 copay, which the Medica would be a coinsurance type situation. Here's where we have another little difference. Any questions about their copay option? Very, very similar, a few little things different. Their HSA option or high deductible health plan is a $3,500 deductible 100% versus a $3,200. So it would be a bit of a jump to go from a $3,000 this year to a $3,500 for those employees. Now my Blue Cross rep would probably say, well, that saves us next year from having to change it again if the IRS bumps up their limits, would be kind of your argument against that. But also, I don't know, you know, I'd rather have 3,200 than a 3,500. So it's a little bit of a difference there. It's covered at 100%. It's going to cover the physicals and things like that that the ACA requires. But again, they do not have that preventive drug list. When we averaged it all out and we had the CHI options and we said, okay, the same employees that are in CHI now are probably going to take that CHI option with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So we really tried to do an apples to apples comparison. It ends up being a 4.99, let's just call it a 5% decrease from current. So, am I missing anything?
No.
Okay, was I too much?
No.
Okay, it's a lot, I know.
Isn't Blue Cross, what did their rates do last year?
So last year they did give us a 44% increase.
So they can afford to go down 5% this year?
They can afford to go down 5% this year.
Okay.
Had we taken the 44% increase, would we be seeing a 39% decrease?
I can't, I don't want to speak to that. So I did go to Blue Cross and I said, you know, they were with you since 2011 and you hit them with 44%. We even brought you competitive rates. You were unable to budge. And, you know, what else can you do for us? And one thing they are willing to do, which is a little bit of it's important, is they would put a 15% rate cap for next year renewal 1/1/25. So I feel like we have two very competitive, and Blue Cross also had some other options that we did look at, but I don't want to go off into that. But two very favorable options I think you have here on the table.
I just have a couple comments.
Okay.
First of all, if you take Blue Cross off the table and you look at what Medica has brought to us, that's a 3% increase in it. All day long, we would be jumping up and down about a 3% increase. There's that to consider. We did have some conversations today, and I've had some in the office with Ryan about, we made a change last year, we'll make another change this year. We're sort of maybe burning some of our marketing bridges possibly for something that might happen next year. You know, we don't know what our claims will be over in 2024, so it's really, I guess I'm kind of salty with Blue Cross about, you know, offering a 44% increase, and then now that maybe some of the things have changed, they're going to give us a 5% increase. I think overall, it's important to look at the numbers of it. A Medica renewal would result in an increase in the city's total premium of $30,000 for the year. We budgeted for something much more significant than that. We budgeted for a 10%, so it does give us some room. Now, from the employee standpoint, if we keep the split the same, Medica's results would be, it would impact employees from $40 per year up to the highest would be an additional $360 per year. Whereas Blue Cross a single on a PPO in the CHI network would experience an increase of $28, but someone on family HSA would have a savings of almost $900 per year. So there's some changes
The
in there.
deductible, though, if you had the deductible.
But if you add in the increase in the deductible for a family, you're going from 64 to 7, so that's another $600 if you. I guess where I would land as administrator, after talking to Buffy and Ryan, it's my recommendation or my opinion that you would stick with Medica. Now, it's your decision to make, but that's how I feel about it.
It doesn't sound like we want to, as you mentioned too, don't want to jump maybe back and forth from Medica to Blue Cross. And I don't think that probably gets us anywhere.
And as Melissa mentioned, the staff
Family Dental Center.
got along, Medica's been pretty well received. One thing, I think all of us can, I'm sure your employers you've dealt with is changing benefits can be a real headache for a family too. So, it's not, if we're not talking some significant dollars, that, boy, that's a lot of work to change insurance companies sometimes. But
That's actually a concern that I was thinking about during the presentation as well, going back and forth. I would be interested to know what the overall feeling, and you probably can't speak to that, of what what the city staff.
We actually talked about that. We talked about it in the meeting we had today, and then I talked about it with Ryan. And I truly feel if we went to the employees and said, these are our two options, this is what it would cost you, we would have half of our employees that would be interested in moving to Blue Cross, and we have half of our employees that would be interested in sticking with Medica.
Okay.
that's hard to gauge. With
Yeah.
55 employees, you might get 55 different opinions.
Sure. Yeah.
What they do.
So if we're,
Now, there may be a way, with that wellness credit, there may be a way we can work that into how that's applied to the employee share versus all city share. You follow?
If you don't mind, I'll also remind the council, you guys did increase the council's or the city's share last year, right? Wasn't that something the city did? We actually increased our percentage.
Yeah.
That we could, I just want to remind you that the city did that. I think that was a good.
Because of the increase, we were trying to take as much
We were
pressure
trying
off
to take
of the
a little bit of
employees as we
the,
could.
Both Blue Cross and Medica are both great partners of our agency. One thing I would like to add, Medica also, we were a 12-1 renewal last year. So we renewed 12-1 and they gave us a 13-month contract to get us back to line up to January 1st. So our deductibles and our renewal all line up together because it was sort of kind of a pain, I think, with being on that December 1st renewal. And then, deductibles reset January 1 type of thing. So, but now we've got that in line. That was another thing, and they held the rates.
historically, if we're 3% this year, last year was maybe a jumble, but it went up certain percentage, and then can you frame it out for the last 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, the year
Health
before
insurance
that
is
we were
expensive.
0%. And then the year before that, I think we were a single digit of 3 or 5.
Okay,
And we've pretty much ran,
that's pretty good.
so the trend in our industry typically runs between about 8 to 14%, just average inflation rate. And it feels like, with the exception of last year, we've been running within trend or below. So that's, Medica did come in this year below trend. I can tell you from our agency standpoint, our average renewals have been between 8 to 20% on the majority of our groups. Of course, we have some that are a little worse and some that are better, but 8 to 20 has kind of been where the sweet spot is.
Okay.
As late in the game as we are, would it even be possible? I mean, I definitely lean toward Medica as well. I don't think a 3% increase is unreasonable, and making a change is a challenge. But even if we wanted to, I don't know this late in the game when you got less than a month to go before we're right at a month to go before it's has to be kicked in, which means employees would already have had to make new selections in a new program and try to understand them and things like that. I just feel like that would be a huge
So
undertaking.
that was something we haven't had our open enrollment.
Because
yet,
you didn't have a
we're
contract,
waiting on
right?
this, right? And so by our second, well, a little before our second payroll in December, we would really like to have this decided, which is why we're here tonight, and you're probably maybe getting more information than what you typically get, so.
A
Well, and something I think that's important that maybe council isn't aware of, but with that Blue Cross quote that we got, you know, they really hit us hard because we had some pretty significant claims on our benefits last year. So they came back with that 44%. And I think what impressed me with Medica was, rather than try to hit us even harder, knowing what we had out there for claims, that they came in so low, you know, to try to get us really good rates for our employees despite having those high claims that we had last year.
There's the other piece of it that is principal, which is provides our dental, long-term disability, our basic life, and voluntary life and vision. And those rates actually came in pretty much across the board under. We were able to look at the voluntary vision, increase the benefit for literally pennies per month for the employee. So there would be some cost savings in moving forward with what they're coming with. I don't know if we need to go through all the plan details, but
Well,
generally.
one of the things we did do is, we again talked about some benchmarking, and we used the upper Midwest for cities your size. And we looked at maybe some richer benefit plans. I think for now, we're gonna keep on the ancillary side, besides the vision, which made a lot of sense. The others, maybe I think would be something we would continue to talk about, but we had great rates either way. But they were pretty much rate declines, the principal came in with. And that was due to, we did some marketing and then, you know, took that back to them and they were able to meet us where we wanted to be. Principal's been a great partner too. Great
We've
carrier.
been with principal for a long time.
There's really not a compelling reason to want to change. I guess I don't know where everybody else is at.
Yeah,
And with
I make a motion to stay with, approval to stay with Medica.
And principal?
Sure. I guess they're
Right,
always,
so
they're
you
just
do
the underlying
separate
part of it.
actions, right, yes.
I do have just a quick question, not that I disagree, but, you know, Carl brought up a good point that, you know, even if we wanted to change right now, we're up against the wall. And why does it take this, why are we up against a bump this close? What if we wanted to make a change and stuff like that? Why can't we have this information a little sooner? I guess it'd just be a request. So that we can make those changes if we want to, because right now, I mean, we'd have to make that change and scramble to get everything done in the next less than a month.
Well, yeah, because say Medica came in with a 15% increase,
Right.
and Blue Cross was a 5% decrease, well, do we wanna
Then
hit
it
the employees with
Right.
15%, or do we wanna switch? And now we're saying, hey, we're gonna make a change, and you got 3 weeks to make the decision on what plan you want.
And get everybody's pushed over.
So I would just have two kind of responses to that. One, as far as open enrollment, we would obviously be here and we'd love to do in-person open enrollment meetings with your employees. In fact, last year we had one right here after hours. We included spouses because we were making such a big change. So it's really important to us to do education. We make employee benefit guides. So even though it's still November, but not only a few days left, if we can get a decision, that part we can get done, I think, by 1/1. But the only other thing is sometimes we're a little bit of a victim from the carrier standpoint of when they're gonna release that renewal. It's typically about 75 days out, 60 to 75 days out. So by the time we get all that, we're having our meetings, we've decided we need to market, we need to get everything to the carriers. And every time everything gets back to us, we have to put everything into spreadsheets. It just takes a little bit of time. So we will obviously try to keep things as fast as possible next year.
I do agree with Shane. It'd be nice to see stuff a little sooner. I'd like to see some stuff, numbers in front of us that would help make the decision as well. But that being said, I'll go ahead and second Stuart's motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Motion is to approve to stay with Medical.
Are we bifurcating it, or is principal included in the motion?
I planned on putting it all together. I didn't realize we needed didn't plan on doing two separate things.
Okay.
Unless you're wanting to separate it.
She's back to say that.
Okay, roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Raffle,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you. Yes,
Just waiting for you to read the next item.
Agenda item 2.
oh, sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine.
My screen went blank. Have to go off the old document here. Consideration of change of local agent, insurance agent on record effective January 1, 2024, and implementation of ease employee navigation portal as requested by Eric Hancock.
So as I mentioned to you in my report, the Finance Committee has had conversations with both Eric and Inspro, Eric. But Eric requested to specifically have the opportunity to address the council, so,
So everybody's waiting for me and that guy to go at it here, and it's happening. My name is Eric E.J. Hancock. I'm a local benefits consultant here in town. I am not asking for any sort of motion or movement today, just based off of the renewal just getting here today. I mean, so that's why I'm not here to do that. I just want to talk a little bit about what I do, the services that we provide, and the fact that I'm one of the local taxpayers. So as I'm sitting out there talking and thinking about, you know, what and I want to step back just a second and say this has nothing to do with Inspro, Brandon, or any of his team. They do a magnificent job. I've ran into him several times. In fact, he will admit we've gone on some vacations together because we use the same FMO. So our field marketing organization is the same person or the same general agency. They do a great job. That I'm not here to disparage anything they're doing. What I'm here to talk about is the fact that as I look around the table and I look at a local businessman, some other local businessmen, I would like the opportunity to serve the city of Wahoo in the capacity that I do for a living. I've been doing insurance. In fact, we started Anchor Insurance across the street in the old cleaner over here. Is where we started our agency. I'm a small to mid-sized group broker. We also do a lot of marketplace plans. Medica is a great company. Principal is a great company. The plans you have are solid. I would recommend the same thing. What I'm here to talk about is the opportunity to earn some revenue to keep in my town, to spend it here for the city of Wahoo. It has nothing to do with anything that the folks behind me have done wrong or to do anything like that. I met with the finance committee and we talked about a lot of this. I just wanted an opportunity tonight to just to say, look, this is who I am. This is who my team is. One of the things that we can offer that hasn't been offered is the EASE or the Employee Navigator program to the city of Wahoo. I talked to Melissa about it a little bit. It's a program for enrollment and terminations that will integrate with the system they already have. It'll help with some efficiencies. It's something that she said she was desiring to look at, and I'm able to offer that to the city along with my services for free. I'm going to eat the cost of it to earn the business. Okay? I'm just looking at some of the notes I have here. And again, I really, when we put on the agenda, I thought the renewal was earlier. So this timing kind of sucks, to be honest with you. But as long as I'm here, I might as well at least introduce myself and talk about, you know, what we do. Any questions about Anchor, myself, anything like that?
Eric, just for my benefit, and I'm sure the council's the same, can you describe what agent of record means on a policy?
So what that would mean is the agent of record, when you change agent of record, it means you would change from Inspro to Anchor and specifically to Eric Hancock as the servicing agent for all the policies. I've talked to Melissa for several years about getting opportunities to bid the plan. And when I came back to her this time, I just said, I'm not here to change anything. I just want to earn the business. You know, and she came into my office and laughingly, was not planned. I had my tax statement there with the check on it, ready to pay, and I just said, I spend money in town. I was thinking I could describe my day today to say how I spend my revenue in town. You know, wake up, there's a Scooters Cup sitting there, there's gas in my car, go to the Civic Center, those types of things. Whip up on Stewart at the Civic Center pickleball, right? So, just to show you that I have been doing this a fair amount of time. I've been in the financial services for 21 years. This is what we do for a living, my agency. We both do marketplace plans, so almost 3,000 or 4,000 different individual plans, and then also we do from small group to mid-sized group. And I'd like to earn your business. I'd like to earn a chance to earn the revenue to spend here in town. I feel like my service and the location of my service is very convenient for the employees. Most of them I know personally. I can walk over from my office in 2 minutes if somebody needs a meeting. You know, I participate in all the community events. I hear local a lot from lots of people. I mean, again, we've got bankers and attorneys and radio hosts and all kinds of folks sitting in this room that are local folks. I'd like to be a part of that. And I think at least a chance to do that, to earn it or lose it, is a fair opportunity. Okay?
And health insurance, you know, I think insurance generally, I think, you know, I have a home casualty insurance, right? So I either have a State Farm product with a State Farm agent, I have a Farmers Mutual product with a Farmers Mutual agent. Health insurance is such that the plan being a Medica plan doesn't prohibit the change of the agent of record.
Correct.
During
So,
the term. That can still change.
We're Inspro and Anchor are independent agencies, so I can represent pretty much everybody that they would represent from that standpoint. So yeah, I mean, our goal here today is not to upset the apple cart. I just want the same opportunity that others have been afforded to earn that business, either to earn it and keep it, I hope, or to lose it and make a change. But I haven't had that opportunity yet over the last 15 years that I've been around this, and so I like that chance. I'm hoping that the council and the committees that sit here would understand that and appreciate that. So, any other questions?
And Melissa, your recommendations for the finance committee, presumably to hear a pitch from the agent of record and from the proposed agent of record, and then come back to council?
I think they have some time invested in that already, and I would like them to have the opportunity to finish that process, unless there's objection from the rest of the county.
No, it doesn't make any, can I just jump in? It doesn't make any sense right now to do anything. I mean, from their standpoint, from my standpoint, interrupting the process of open enrollment, especially as crammed as it is right now, would make no sense. I'm hoping that after the turn of the year, and I would just add that the reason why I wanted to January 1st look at this is because we wanted to bring in ease. Is that fair to say, Melissa? So we're timing it with the calendar year turn. And so for me to do my end of it, to be selfish, I don't want to have to do my end of it and find out that I don't get the case. If that's fair.
So optimally, when would that, you be looking for the finance committee to make a recommendation and make a switch?
Jan 1.
Okay.
Is there another city council meeting? Let me ask this question as the attorney. Do they have to have a council meeting to have an AOR signed by the finance committee or
Family Dental Center?
Yes. Yeah, unless they pre-authorize, which typically this council never does. So generally, it would have to be a December finance committee meeting before the next council meeting. The next council meeting in December to be the action item. I don't know when the finance is planning to meet.
14th
14th, I think.
council meeting in December.
We have one.
11th.
Joe, to change carriers, you have to have a meeting for AOR?
In order to take action, in order to prove anything,
Okay.
or the city administrator to act and do anything, it would have to be formally approved by the council.
Okay, good to know.
And
Thank
so-
you. Any other questions?
Any other questions, special?
Everybody has my number on here. If you want to talk privately or ask more questions of anything, please feel free to do that. Again, I'd love to earn your business.
So you have met with the finance committee?
Yes, I have.
Yes,
Family Dental.
on your proposal here.
I
So-
believe both parties have, and they're mulling over who's prettier.
Family Dental Center of Blair is here to.
So, subject to change, the expectation right now is it would be up for, the recommendation would be in front of the city council December 14th. That's what we're thinking as of right now,
Possibly.
subject to change.
Yes.
I mean, you're asked for January 1. What if we want to talk about this 6 months from now? Because Inspro's done all the work right now.
I didn't want to go down that road. I don't really want to. I mean, you could. Obviously, you could. But from my standpoint, I'm going to offer up a program, to the city. I guess I could charge the city for it. From that standpoint, if it was something important, but I would. Why 6 months from now?
Right. I just
Right.
brought that up.
No. I mean, yeah.
And I think those are the conversations that the finance
Right.
committee needs to have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Item 3, approval of certification of open positions for the 2024 election.
So each year prior to election, we have to provide certification to the county election person of the positions that will be open during the next election cycle, which is
That's
these
it.
3
So,
on this side of the table, yes. So if
unfortunately.
you agree, that would just be approval of that certification.
What's there even to agree to? I mean,
You're
That's-
making a motion.
Aren't you just stating what's gonna
say
happen?
how it is.
That's
What
when
if we
your
don't
terms
do
are up,
anything?
so.
Hypothetically, you could change things, right? Just because a position exists now doesn't mean it necessarily would have to the next go around.
You could eliminate,
You could eliminate
we could,
things.
if we changed our awards,
Well, you could-
two at large.
Excuse me, come on.
Change it to
Yeah,
at
we
large.
could- We could add award,
Yeah.
we could change the term,
Okay.
which means we would have to change municipal code, and the only way that the county election commissioner is going to know that is through the certification process. So there is a certification form that we have to fill out for each ward with the individual's name, the length of term that they will be serving, or that and when it's expiring. So
and so since we're not changing
we're not changing anything, you're just
anything within the
agreeing.
wards, they're all gonna be the same box, right?
This doesn't have anything to do with
Yeah, right.
wards, but it's about the term and how many positions we have open. So like, for instance, the airport authority had to do the same thing, and they agreed that they have 2 at-large positions that are open. So you have 3 positions that are based on wards open for the next election cycle.
So moved.
Motion been made and seconded.
It's a good answer.
Whatever they say.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Certified.
Question.
I had a question, just, not that it would happen, but just curiosity's sake. So, if we, as a council, could we decide that the term of council members could be 1 additional year?
There's,
Or-
you could make decisions within the confines of the statute. So
Sure,
if you wanted to
sure. So-
investigate a change, and we
Right.
said, look,
But
nobody likes Ryan on the council, let's figure out a way
That's
to
fair, I
change
brought
his.
this up.
Yeah,
Or change it to 2-year terms.
yeah,
For
exactly.
certain,
Yeah.
right. Gotcha, okay. And so, I guess where my example was with extending, then you wouldn't have to certify if we'd already approved there was, the 3 seats extended 1 more year, then there wouldn't be anybody going off this year. I just was.
Yeah, and then that's the whole idea is if someone wants to play politics and we wanna dive into
Yeah.
changing in order to play politics, this is when we would do it.
Gotcha,
Right.
sure.
Now, the wards,
The statute says you have to, that's
Yeah.
why. That's why.
Yeah.
You have to. Because it says so.
Yeah, you have to.
Thank you for humoring me.
okay, we have a motion and a second for the, open position posting. Roll call.
Creachy,
Yes.
Warford,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yeah.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Stratford.
Yes.
Number 4, consideration of a waiver for trash enclosure for Kennedy Campus South Hall renovation project.
Yeah, so I don't know if you have any questions on this or not, but basically the reason why this is on here, I thought it needed to be to address some concerns that I have regarding this. So if you see on that map there with the parking and stuff, we did the parking review and everything for recommendation of approval, and it got approved for that. Now the portion of that, they have the dumpster location out in the, what would be the front yard setback area there. Yep, right there in the corner. That would be the northwest corner of the property. Ideally for trash pickup, that's probably the best location for them to have that. And they are proposing an actual trash enclosure for that, which is great to hide that and everything else like that. Unfortunately, like when we talk about fence regulations and what have you, our limits on height are 4 foot high, and it shall be considered an open fence. That doesn't work very well, and I know that this enclosure really technically isn't a fence, but it can be looked at kind of as the same thing. So it kind of seems pointless to have a 4 foot high fence around a
5 foot dumpster.
a dumpster that is open, that is kind of defeating the purpose. So basically I wanted this on there as a consideration, not to forgive the enclosure of that, but to waiver on those requirements as far as height and being open, so that trash enclosure could be hid and, you know, look somewhat attractive rather than having dumpsters out in the front there. Now the other option would be to have them relocate that and not have it in that area, obviously. But in my opinion, the location of it isn't as, it's a little bit unique because it is a dead end road. Development isn't going to happen any further to the north. So as far as actual garbage truck getting it there and picking up for safety and some other things, I think that's a better location than them having to back down in the parking lot into there and doing it that way. But once again, I just wanted to throw those options out there and get the take on that, I guess, as far as what direction you would like to move forward with that for approval of that. I am kind of holding the building permit subject to this here decision is, and I mean, that is a detail we can work through later. I can still issue the building permit without this, just having that guidance of what you prefer as far as location wise and if a waiver is maybe legitimate here.
Travis, are you wanting them to get into the details of the waiver, or just pass and give the zoning administrator discretion to grant waivers as you see generally appropriate on this?
Just on this one item here. Yeah, I mean, I guess either way. I mean, typically, obviously waivers aren't something that we encourage, and we don't want to bring it that way and try to eliminate from variances or anything else like that. We have had a couple of situations like this one where I feel this is a little bit unique, that we have had waiver situations. So I mean, I guess I'm for them being as specific as they feel necessary, as far as, you know, just allowing an enclosure to not meet the fence requirements, or maybe I am being a little too restrictive in feeling that it should be meeting the same fence requirements as anyone else would have to. I don't know.
So are we being asked by the property owner, or are you asking us for clarification?
Basically, I am representing the property owner. Obviously, you know, I pointed out to them in my plan review, hey, this doesn't meet the requirements. I'm glad you're proposing a enclosure to hide the trash, but you know, looking at our fence requirements and everything else that would normally be required there, it doesn't meet that. So we would either have to maybe look at a waiver, which is before you, or relocating that dumpster enclosure somewhere else on the property that wouldn't be regulated by that 4 foot height and being open.
Would it not make sense to make a change to the current regulation as far as, you know, put an exemption in there for, like,
I don't know that we want to do that, because one instance I know for a trash enclosure that's kind of similar was when Runza redid theirs. They're on a corner lot.
And originally they had their enclosure on the south side, which would have been right along the street. They moved it to the alley side, so it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then you didn't have that trash truck trying to maybe turn around on the street. They was able to go through the alley there and pick it up that way.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking at this one, that's the front door. You want your trash picked up basically in your front door?
It is essentially the front of the building, yes.
Wow.
Based on the parking or where they have roadway though, it's, where else are you gonna do it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
seems like the
it's
most
almost
All
logical
the way at the other end
place.
where you're
Yeah,
backing all the way down it with a dumpster, and
Well,
the cars are gonna clip on your way
And,
down.
but you're also asking a garbage truck to back over a city block to get to this location where it's at right now.
It's wide enough, you can probably turn around there, but,
But they'd be able to go up, back up down the driveway
you know,
if it's somewhere else.
does this impact their parking spaces?
But I don't know who's gonna be their pickup. They may have something where they pick it up from the front.
Yeah,
No, if you look at their parking spaces, with the parking number that they met on premise, with the approval and everything else like that. So, I mean, they might have to shift some parking, and change that layout a little bit if they was to relocate that dumpster area, cause obviously you have a ADA compliant stall down at the end. So if you was to have it down there on that end, you know, they might have to relocate that.
Put the ADA far,
Put the flip-floppers,
put the ADA where the trash
put
is,
the ADA as far away as you can.
from the door so they can't get in.
Just by
Makes
the
a lot
way
of
that the
sense.
trash is slanted like that though, I mean, you've gotta feel that, you've gotta line up with either the front or the back, so it can't face the building. So if you move all the way to the other end, if there is somebody in the ADA spot, or you had to move the ADA spot and there's somebody parked in wherever the number 16 is there, once again, you're face to face with it. There's no way to turn the garbage truck so that it can face the trash can.
Yeah.
No.
Right? If you're trying to
I
scoop
see
it
what
up
you're saying,
front.
yeah.
Like
Well, if he has to go to the
you're gonna be
northeast,
Austin Powers
Yeah.
in that, trying to get
Yeah.
in and out of that lot. This is really the only logical place that looks like you
Yeah.
just pull around the corner, pull in, or back in, whichever the case may be.
Yeah, I don't know what
But you
truck
can't
they're
get to
using.
it any other way.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
Is this a communal receptacle for phase 1 and 2, or
No.
would phase 2 need a separate one?
I would assume, I don't know for sure, I haven't looked at, cause obviously they haven't done an actual
Yeah.
phase 2. I would guess that you would have another dumpster location, cause I mean, that's quite a ways away from phase 2.
yeah.
And then the number of units too, I don't know that one dumpster would be enough for all those units.
I'm just thinking, if ultimately, and I'm not saying it is, but if ultimately your recommendation is, I don't wanna grant a waiver, then would it be, this would be a temporary site, you could do a communal site somewhere in phase 2 down the road that might be more appropriate. I mean, to me, I'm not a big fan of granting waivers unless they're coming to the council at the recommendation of staff, right? If the city says for the health and safety of the public, I think a waiver makes sense. That to me is where a waiver is appropriate, not for convenience of a building or a property owner, that sort of thing. So I guess the question I have more is, from your limited analysis, looking, I guess, just at phase 1, is there a better option? And if it's not, would you believe from a health and public safety standpoint, the waiver makes sense?
Right now, not knowing for sure how phase 2 is gonna really play out, I feel that in this situation for this location, it's set up probably the best way it would be currently,
Okay.
looking at this facility only. Now, I know that we had some draft kind of preliminaries for phase 2, one being the basketball court and everything would be on the southeast side. So to have dumpster location there probably isn't gonna happen. And then it'd be, the only other location would maybe be on the north or the southwest corner, where the tennis court is now. Now, entering that from the street or loading from the street, and how, you know, or if they would have to have another road in there to access it, or if you have another driveway, that's gonna eat up a lot of space just for trash pickup. But
From a safety standpoint though, the ADA entrance into this building will be on the east side, correct?
right, that is the
Right,
closest
so that
stall
is the
there,
closest
yes.
stall, so if you
Okay.
change it around, then or even putting it to the north, again, it's the safety of the occupants inside, in the parking lot. There's no second exit.
You gotta back out of the parking lot.
Or backing in, and either way, people walking across across the parking lot to get to a vehicle and somebody
Yep.
backing up a garbage truck, neither one of those sounds.
Either
good.
one, you're gonna
I
be
think
backing.
As soon as I looked at it, I'm like, well, I wouldn't put my trash there until you look at it more and you're like, well, that's really the only place you can. So,
Could the waiver have a sunset on it when reconsidered for the phase 2?
sorry, and before I get to that, the question is whether or not they can build an enclosure around it. They can put the trash wherever the heck they want to, whether we like that or not. It's the trash enclosure we're allowing a waiver for, is that right?
Essentially, yeah, I mean, we don't have, design standards or anything in this location. They're on their own property. The violation or the portion that I am actually denying would be the actual enclosure itself because of it not meeting height or open requirements of a fence. Now, if we was to look at it and say, well, that's not a fence.
Well, don't we require it? She had that up there. We require a trash enclosure, don't we? A 6-foot trash enclosure?
Somewhere, yeah.
Somewhere, but
where-
this is in the
but
front yard.
But it's, so that's what I said, so it's because the location of it that it gets goofy.
Right.
I don't know, trash
It's a
enclosure,
gray area.
trash enclosure to me.
And I would think we would want a high fence enclosure because it's
Right.
next to an open area. You don't want people right next to the Kennedy area, being able to get
Well,
in.
you'd want it, but that's where I was getting
Yeah.
confused. I'm like, we require a trash enclosure, and we're saying you can put your trash wherever you want, but you can't put it there because the trash enclosure becomes a fence.
It's in the right.
Which I don't know that I agree with that, but either way, I'd make the waiver to make it clean if that's what we had to do. I don't see where else we would put it, so, and I'd rather have an enclosure than not have one.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Is that a
Point.
motion and a second?
I would make a motion.
Yes. Yeah.
And to give Travis general discretion as to
yeah,
the way
according to
we
whatever Travis feels is safe
Yeah.
and right for the public.
You don't want a window or anything on that as far as possible relocation for phase 2 and a
I think
better
that'd be,
location?
the way it
It's
would read,
dangerous
it'd be up to
because-
you to decide, cause you're given general discretion in the waiver.
This is just the thing.
And the question for them, of course, would be, if you float that, they're saying, well, it's gonna cost me X number of dollars to construct that. It doesn't seem reasonable, or they're saying, so you maybe want it to be a communal one, how am I gonna get trash from the existing structure all the way to the other side, a block away, you want my people to walk all the way down, I mean, that's the complication, probably that would happen.
Right, yeah, where else unless, that's supposed to be garages in there, so I don't know if there's something, but I don't know how you would locate that in there either, but that would probably be somewhat ideal if that's the back of the structure facing then those garage structures there. But again, I don't plan these things.
It's also gonna be quite a haul for the people that are using the ADA parking to take their trash out.
Either way it is.
Yeah.
You gotta walk somewhere.
But if you put it on that, if it potentially goes in phase 2's parking lot, potential, if that's how it sets up, there's a sidewalk right from the ADA entrance down to it if you put the trash back there.
Interesting.
So it's even closer for the ADA.
So for clarification, the
Yeah,
motion is
clear.
to grant Travis general
Okay.
discretion to issue a waiver.
Right.
That's what sounds, if that's how it lays out.
That's what I said.
Is that a friendly second?
And I think that's what Chris said.
Yep, I
Yeah, I'll
agree.
second.
Yeah.
I agree with Carl.
Yeah. Sounded good.
That agreement still stays.
I still
Okay,
agree with Carl.
any other discussion?
Unfortunately.
You read the motion and I think everybody accepted that, so
Yep.
roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Rappel.
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Krejci.
Yes.
Okay, number 5, review of Wahoo South Trail alignment options, staff recommendations of route, and possible action to officially select route to allow for further development plans. Attached is
You wanna
the
try it?
Wahoo South
You go
Trail
to exhibit
study
0.1.
as completed August 2023. Okay,
So good evening, everyone. One of the enjoyable parts about my job is when
you don't need to do 69 pages word for
No,
word.
I get to talk about a little bit lighter topics, fun stuff, leisure and recreation. So tonight, I want to just start with a little bit of a broader overview. If you remember in August, GAEO's intern group that provided us with a very good resource in the way of their study of our options with trail development, non-motorized transportation alternatives, if you will, to serve that one right, that one will do, yep, that one's fine. So, just want to give you a broader picture, as you know, probably most of you, just the blue lines, want to talk about what exists right now in our community for trails. Those blue lines, the light blue is what we have in place currently. Approximately 2.6 miles of both concrete and limestone, crushed limestone surfaces. That does not include the safe routes to school piece, which we don't technically call a trail because we can't, but we do maintain it as the city, so that is still something that we would call part of our trail system. So you can see certainly we've done an extensive amount of work to develop a trail system through our central to northern parts of our community, connecting some really important key pieces, including the high school, the elementary school, Hackberry Park, Lake Wahoo, Plotchek Park, Cooks Park, the library, so on and so forth. So certainly it's been on our radar, and by our radar I mean the city's Park and Rec Department's strategic radar in terms of continuing trail development. Keep in mind the last piece we've done beyond safe routes to school has been the Lake Wahoo piece, which was, believe it or not, 7 years ago, I believe, Melissa, right? 2016. So we're in a position where I believe we need to start moving forward with some specific plans to start looking at getting the rest of the spine of our trail system, which is that middle blue piece, extending that south from here at the library down Maple Street to serve the southern portions of our main community hub, and then also serving those 3 developments, neighborhoods in the southern part of our community, Continental, Heritage, as well as Country Club. So that's just a broad overview of what we have now, and what I'm here to talk about or ask for some general discussion, some thoughts about what is the best way to get from here, so basically where you're sitting at today, to get to that area on the south side of town. I think the really nice part about this is Maple Street, this corridor sets up perfectly to continue that spine south as far as A Street. And then from there, that becomes our really, this particular project will have some unique challenges to it we didn't have with other pieces, things like specifically rail crossing, and then also getting over Wahoo Creek. You know, we've done that before with that Wahoo Trail, right, with the bridge that we put in there. The group that put this together gave us 5 different options that are color-coded on your layout there. In terms of what they came up with, kind of just the conceptual thoughts and of what they thought might work for potentially getting that trail extended. Now keep in mind, I would point this out, they only looked at it, and you can see this, basically starting at the railroad south, okay? They kind of went in with the understanding that we were going to be committing to going down Maple Street, which I would hope we would be, because I think that makes the most sense, of continuing down Maple Street from here at 6th, and then continuing all the way down to A Street, and then figuring out what to do from there. So just keep in mind that the routes they determined on this, as well as the cost estimates, were not including this piece down Maple Street. Does that make sense? So just keep that in mind, something to think about. But I think this is an easy piece that makes a lot of sense to most people, myself included. So from there, you've got some options to choose from. To make, to kind of get to the point, I guess, my thought is, when I look at these options, I've always been very, very highly motivated and highly inclined to like the piece that they consider option 2 or alternative 2, specifically 2B, and that is the bright, let's call it magenta, okay, knowing my color palette, which would be on the south or on the bottom left corner of your screen. So if you can point to it there with your pointer, yep, right there, Joe. Yeah. So that would be, in my opinion, the best option for us in terms of trail development for this particular piece. Now, there are a couple things that factored into that in terms of, so rail crossings, one of the things that we've learned through not just this study, but also we had a grant that we received from the National Park Service a year ago. I worked with a lady from the National Park Service office out of Omaha called the RTCIA program. And she studied the same thing, looking at specifically rail crossings and what the best routes there are. The railroads are they're the king, right? They control everything. They do not allow you to create new perpendicular at-grade crossings across their tracks, okay, for pedestrian or for non-motorized purposes. They just absolutely don't allow it, and that's become very clear. So basically, you have to choose existing crossings to enhance those crossings to allow for pedestrian crossings. So in this case, our options would be either Chestnut Street, or my recommendation would be to look at Linden Street, which would be right there south of Bishop Newman High School, on that side of it, and putting in the pedestrian crossing at that rail location. Okay, so that would be the thought there, and then from there would be taking advantage of some city-owned property, which would be where the street department puts the snow in the wintertime, where they dump the snow. Are we familiar with that on C Street there? As we go Linden past the football practice fields there by Bishop Newman, make that turn to the east on that gravel, there's that open area that the city owns, which is a piece of or contiguous with the wastewater treatment plant property. Any rate, that would be an area where we could put that trail piece and then cross with a bridge to get over onto that abandoned railway corridor, which would have to be cleared and grubbed because it's heavily wooded right now. And then a nice straight shot to the south, to the southeast, and connecting there. That's my thoughts. There would be a portion of this trail piece that would be on street where we'd need to do some work to create some designated lanes for pedestrian, non-motorized vehicle traffic, specifically as you get to A Street, right, coming south on Maple, and then taking a left, if you will, if you're heading south, to go east towards Bishop Newman for about a block and a half roughly, and then taking a right going down Linden across the tracks on Linden Street. So there would be probably some thought given in our design plans of how we would make that 2.5 block section mesh with what's existing there, because there is some off-street parking next to the school, et cetera, but certainly I don't think any obstacles that we can't overcome. Honestly, the biggest obstacles are going to be dealing with railroad permitting process, dealing with them to get their blessing on an existing at-grade crossing, and then dealing with just figuring out where that bridge needs to go to get over Wahoo Creek. So some unknowns with this route would be, honestly, in looking at GIS, Melissa and I talked about this. One of the first things we'd like to do is get some title search underway to figure out who exactly has ownership of that rail corridor. And sometimes it's a 50-50 thing between adjacent property owners is the way they leave it. But we would want some clarification there. So if we need to look at some easements for those property or that piece of it in terms of the rail corridor. But
the abandoned section.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think anybody claims it. Nobody takes care of it. But you have Bob Slope on one side there to the west, and I think Jim Vunick is listed as the owner of the property, farm ground to the east of it. So, it might be a very simple conversation. I know talking with Bob, he's very supportive of us getting this, process started to get some connectivity out to that neck of the woods. So I think he's supportive in whatever he can do to help us do that, accomplish that. So that's my recommendation for a route. I think our experience, some of the other routes, the more direct route, which was alternative 1, was the orange route, which means that one, yep, right there, which was going down Chestnut and doing a couple different things, which would have been basically creating another trail to the east side of Chestnut Street to the northern edge of Heritage Heights subdivision. But then the real issue there becomes how do you deal with the bridge? And I don't like the idea of adding something onto the bridge, but also the other option they gave us was, putting some designated striping in there, but that narrows the bridge in terms of the vehicular traffic. So that doesn't eliminate the safety problem that we have. And that's probably the biggest thing we're trying to solve here as well, is not just connectivity, but safety and making a safe way for folks to get into our community from those southern neighborhoods. So, again, the alternative 2 to B specifically would be, in my opinion, our best option. And then, again, keep in mind, when we look at the totality of this project, when we start attacking this and doing some planning for it, it would be from this starting point here, the terminus of our Maple Street Trail right now, heading south down the Maple Street corridor. So yeah, right there where Christina's got that, and then heading to A Street, and then a short jog down on A to Linden, and then across the tracks, and so on and so forth, as I explained. So that's my thought process with this. So I'd open it up if you have thoughts of your own, if you have ideas, if you like that, if you don't like it, let me know. But we would, I guess the goal tonight was for us, by us I mean Melissa and I, and specifically me, to start to get some consensus and approval, if you like that idea of that route. We do have money budgeted this year from our capital fund, sales tax fund, to start getting some preliminary planning and looking at some of these specific things, and probably engaging with the railroad, engaging with some of the property owners, and talking about access and easement things, and who really has ownership rights in those areas, and getting some of that done so that we can have our ducks in a row and have those things necessary that we need to start applying for when the time comes for those grants that are available to fund these type of transportation alternative projects. So that's my presentation. Thoughts on it? Don't like it? Like it? You have a better, another idea? I'm open to listening. This is just again a discussion and thoughts on what you feel like would be the best way to get this done.
I guess my input to this is I agree. I do like option 2 greater than option 1, simply because I like where it falls with the school.
Yeah.
I think that'll be great for tying some together. On the
Both school properties are
Yeah.
connected to trails.
then the school properties will be connected to trails. That's kind of what draws me to that option.
One of the real great parts about this specific option or alternative that appeals to me is when I look at the grants that are out there, it checks a ton of boxes
Okay.
for their criteria. And in terms of connectivity, you're connecting activity points, if you will, what they call activity points, much like we did with the high school and the safe routes and Lake Wahoo and those trails. That was an appealing part of any project. We're connecting, to our main trail here, but then like Chris mentioned, you're getting Newman, you're getting the school system there, Civic Center, quite frankly, in terms of Maple Street, and then just a couple blocks to the east, so on and so forth. So that's one big selling point. The safety part of it is getting that non-motorized traffic off of Chestnut is a huge selling point for the federal government. When you talk about getting that off of what used to be a former highway, that's a huge thing. So there's a lot of things. And then the abandoned rail corridor is another box that gets checked with this that they really like to see. Communities take advantage of is those abandoned rail corridors. So I think that's the other real neat attractiveness of this option, is the fact that it really checks a lot of those boxes. Now, I can't tell you what our timeline is going to be moving forward when it comes to those grant applications, because I just did learn yesterday in talking with Jeff Sula out of the NDOR office, the one grant program that I would probably have pursued first, it's called TAP, Transportation Alternative Program. It's what was used to help fund the Safe Routes to School. That one is an 80% federally funded program trickling down through NDOR. That actually has a minimum match that we would want of minimum of $500,000, and this would certainly exceed that. Problem is, last year when they went through that process, it was a multi-year award process. So he doesn't know, it won't be in 24, but maybe 25 when they would come back with another application period. But my point is, we want to be prepared for that, and that's what I want to get this moving forward, because it's going to take some work to figure some of these things out, as far as, like I said, the railroad crossing, where are the proper places to cross with the bridge, dealing with landowners. Now, we don't want to get into the weeds too far, because none of the expenses that we would be incurring now are going to be eligible. Obviously, you got to wait till you're awarded those funds through that grant program, and then more planning work in your final design plan sets can become eligible for funding reimbursement. But we want to at least have something that we're ready to go with our applications when the time comes. So
getting across the creek and the tracks is by far the expensive part. But when they did the magenta down, is there a reason that orange didn't tie back to 77? Does that bog it down? To me, that little branch over to the shoulder of 77 on the south side of the bridge makes sense to do that as well. Or is that
at the same time, you think, Stu?
Time?
I think they were looking at it just in terms of simply what's point A to point B, without little whatever you want to call it, little branch.
I didn't know if 77 would bog it down again and uncheck some boxes.
It could, because if you're going to bring or keep traffic there, even though it would be a standalone trail to the side, You know, I don't know if that would be looked upon favorably or unfavorably. It would certainly add more cost.
Yeah.
My guess is, if you remember the cost estimate just for the magenta piece, and that doesn't include from here to basically Newman, the cost that they estimated was about a little over $1 million for crushed rock surface, which I would recommend, right? We don't need to have concrete on an abandoned rail corridor. But now Maple Street, we want to continue with our concrete. So, you know, I don't know, I'm just estimating, but I would say just adding that piece in, you're looking at a minimum of another $500,000.
Yeah.
So you're going to be upwards of $1.5 to $2 million potentially when you talk about engineering costs, contingencies, and all those sort of things. So, you know, 20% of that, all of a sudden, you know, you're in there for a significant amount on a city side, local match side, you know, so if we're fortunate enough to receive that funding. So, and it's a big chunk. So the total distance from here to get to Heritage on the bottom side to where basically South Haven is, I calculated to be close to about 2 miles. So we would almost double the existing length of our trail system. Again, not including the safe routes, trails, or sidewalks. So,
Am I correct in assuming that options 3, 4, and 5 are by far the least viable in your mind?
Yeah.
In terms of
absolutely.
kind of how do you
Because if you look at them, Joven, like for example, the one that's the hot pink one, I'll call it, trust me, and Melissa will reaffirm this, I don't want to be as close to a creek as that one is, if we can avoid it, given what we've had to deal with some of the flooding issues on the north side with the Wahoo Trail. You know, we've had to mitigate a number of things there. We just got done doing some significant FEMA work to mitigate some issues. I would prefer not to follow the trail or a creek again if we can avoid it. They're great, they're picturesque, but I also think it gets away from the, you know, if you look at it, and that was kind of the puzzling part to me a little bit, is that trail doesn't really get to the neighborhoods, right? It gets you to the Highway 77, right? Same thing with the green one, if you want to scroll to the left and down, yeah. So they proposed another piece from basically Hackberry over to the country club, and there's not connectivity there, and that's going to be your problem for us when I go with an application. Is they're going to say, well, what are you connecting? Who are you connecting here, right? The federal government or the state's going to say, what are you trying to connect? So those pieces aren't necessarily, in my opinion, viable. Maybe for future, once we can get to those areas and then start branching off. But right now, we've got to finish our spine, and we've got to get the south neighborhoods connected and get a safer way for folks to get into our community from Heritage, from Country Club, and from Continental.
Do you know, is there already as part of the subdivision plan a connection there? Or is that just the closest location from Heritage Heights to that?
That was what they called 2A, Joven, in terms of an alternative, just to get into the subdivision and kind of reduce the project scope. They proposed that. I would just as soon continue down that railroad corridor and then jump up onto J Road basically, and get in there.
To your point, there was not anything included in that subdivision.
No.
Yeah, because this wouldn't have been contemplated at that time.
I'm sorry,
Just because I would imagine a property owner, I'm not sure whose house that is, but would have a significant problem with you coming right through the side of their
trail traffic.
Yeah,
Right behind their back there.
Yeah.
But as you look at that though, I think of practicality, you know,
That makes sense.
the family's gonna go for a walk, oh, we're gonna go into town, we're gonna go to the library, or whatever it is, as they go walking. Like it's, would be a whole lot easier if you can get them to head straight out that corner, than it's gonna be to go up to J Road,
For
walk
sure.
all the way out and around to come down the trail.
And those are conversations.
It's exercise, so it's
You don't want to
And how many kids will cut across the
That's
yard?
That's honestly what I said.
Let's be honest.
Well, there may not be a sidewalk, but that's whose yard they're going through to get there anyway.
What did we all do at 12?
They got side by sides now, they'll just
Yeah.
pull over.
Okay,
Went off the rails.
Any other comments for me, thoughts? That's my thoughts, and so if you are in agreement with, I see some nodding heads, I'd just like some affirmation that this is the direction you'd like to see me, Melissa, and I continue to work in getting this. And again, I have no timeline at this point, but this is the first step to start planning for getting this extended. So, thank you.
thank you. Okay,
Do we need a motion to?
You want to close session?
No.
No, I
On
think
the
so.
trail, to
Correction.
give.
I would
say- I would
make a motion to, have me chase down 2B.
I'll second that.
okay.
Chase down to be, got it.
You know how to church that up, right?
Yeah.
Okay, roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Nagel.
Yes.
Rappel,
Yes.
Krejci.
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Ideas.
Yes.
Possible action completed. Okay. Number 6, discussion regarding acquisition of property. We have a couple things that are moving forward a little bit, so I think it's appropriate to go into closed session on this. I would invite the council to stay, legal counsel, Melissa, Travis, to stay. Ryan, yeah, didn't see you. There you go. So what's the wording?
What, for the protection of public interest as a result of the property acquisition.
Make a motion to go into closed session for protection of public interest as a result of acquiring property, and I'd like to invite Jovan and the mayor and Melissa and Ryan and Travis.
Second.
I got it. Is that everybody?
That should work.
Okay.
Is there a second? Yeah, okay. Roll call.
Warford,
Yes.
Nagel,
Yes.
Grapple,
Yes.
Ideas,
Yes.
Sweet,
Yes.
Creighton.
Okay.